Hello everyone, welcome to another daily Muppet covering the latest news on all things Manchester United, including the managers, transfers, contracts, and a bit of everything else. I've got a few things I want to talk about today. Some news, some not. First, let's talk about the updated manager situation. People keep kind of expecting this huge breaking news to come out, and the reason I keep cautioning and telling people to wait is simply because it's not done, it's not finalized, and when it is, it will be reported fairly quickly, at least in some respects. If you're continuously waiting for and expecting every hour the big break to come through, you might be waiting a little bit longer than you think. The club are still going through the process. This will tie into the thing we're going to talk about in the next section, but they're still going through the process. The reports today coming from Stretty News, from Luckhurst, and from others are that there is the second round of interviews set up, as we know, that Ten Hag his representatives are scheduled to meet with club representatives this week, and they're still in talks with Pochettino's side. The articles yesterday, there was a few following Ralph Rangnick's kind of post-match press conference that came out in the evening, and most of them from Paul Hurst, from Ducker, and from Simon Stone simply mentioned that the same thing as always, that they're still working on it for those two candidates. There was an interesting thing in Simon Stone's article that got kind of missed by most people. I didn't see anyone bring it up. It said that Van der Sar and Nasser met in wherever the ECA meets. I don't remember the city he mentioned. It says they met last week and spoke about the manager process, and that neither one of them knew who United was going to hire. So that's actually a fairly important report, because you'll have people saying that everything is done, but you have the heads of both PSG and Ajax saying in conversation neither of them knew which manager United was picking. So they obviously haven't informed the clubs of a final decision there as of yet. Anyway, that wasn't anywhere. I just thought it was an interesting tidbit because that's sort of something you've never heard before about the two clubs' heads meeting at the ECA meeting and talking about the manager situation and neither knowing which one United was going for or going to pick in the end. As of now, of course, still reported that Ten Hag is the front runner, that he's leading the race. He's got some in-person meetings. The only caveat with all the reporting is that while Ten Hag has an agent who's obviously been talking to people, he had news over the weekend about his release clause being lower, about potentially bringing in coaches. I think I mentioned about Rene Monstein, potentially bringing him in as a Dutch former coach to get some familiarity. Keep an eye on all that stuff. Pochettino has no agent, so obviously there's a lot less stories coming out there. One person I would keep an eye out for, though, if you were looking for Pochettino news, whether it be he's out of the running or he's catching up or whatever it might be, Jason Bird at The Telegraph seems to have a good line to him, so his articles are one I would pay attention to. But moving on to that, there was something else that kind of came from the press conference and from some articles today, and it was about the players not listening to the manager or not listening to the coaching or not following along instructions. There was some confusion, a bit of a divide in the dressing room about the next coach, and it's actually a bit of an interesting one, that whole kind of report, because there's some actual validity to all of it. I was just talking with some of the people in Discord in the Patreon area about this yesterday, actually, so it's timely. But something I've been bringing up since back in October, September, November, when Ollie was sacked. McKenna and Carrick were the main coaches running training at United, and while there's been a lot of criticism of them online, a lot of misunderstanding, they were actually extremely well respected in the locker room, and by all accounts very effective, very, very effective. Jose Mourinho praised McKenna. McKenna's really, really highly rated by a lot of people. And obviously he immediately went and got a head coaching job. He's done very, very well at Ipswich. And it's League One, but he's gone from a coach to a head coach. It's a good jump and a good experience for him. They were hounded quite heavily and left the club essentially because of all the abuse being leveled their way that even spilled into family life and things like that, which does tend to happen, which is very much a shame. And people can say, well, the player should respond to whatever coach and do whatever the coach says, but what's the coach saying? They, in any work environment, having a good rapport, a good relationship with your managers, with your bosses, with the people giving you instructions is important. If you were in a business and all of the employees were underperforming, you'd look at the people telling them and instructing them and running them and say, what are you doing? And if they said, we're confused, we don't know what to do, that can appear often as a lack of effort, as a lack of trying, as a lack of understanding. And it really is a lack of understanding when players don't understand why, you have no striker, but you keep playing this 4-2-2 with Bruno and Pogba that doesn't work, that got ripped apart by City. Why not play Rashford when you have no striker? And that was even in the article, that specific point. But it's not so much to say that, Ralph is to blame. The problem is the toxicity around the club is a serious problem now when it comes from the fans as well. Hounding out coaches who are experienced, who are there, who have a good rapport with the players. And while things fell apart under Ollie, it doesn't mean that it was all on the coaching. The ideas were not there to match, and the personnel were not there to match the transition that Ollie was trying to make, and Ronaldo didn't fit his system either. And while Ronaldo's been great in many ways, he did not fit the style that he was trying to move to. And so it's not to say, Ollie shouldn't have been let go, he should have. But you generally don't want your coaches to go too. And unfortunately, they had to because they felt they had to because of everything that's gone on. And I think that's very much a shame. And the result is you end up with what? Ralph is not an experienced head coach manager. That's not what his track record is in. And he had to bring in Chris Armas, who's a very nice person, from what I understand, and I actually like him, but not an experienced coach at this level. His level is being in the MLS. He's not an experienced coach. And so you're left with a lot of players who are confused about what's going on, about the instructions, about what's going on the training pitch, about all of that. And that shows up in the game. The system is chopping and changing every other week. There's not a lot of consistency. And you can say all these players are all terrible, but they're not. Most of them were overperforming under Ollie while things were good. And things go bad with managers, but that doesn't mean everything was bad. It doesn't mean they're all bad. There isn't the level of coaching at the club at the moment, even that there was under Ollie. So it's a problem, that familiarity, the coaches being removed, or leaving rather, and not really being replaced by people with experience who have relationships with the players, who like the players. Players should like the coaches. They should get along. It's not like ideal that everybody has to be on the same page all the time. You're always going to have some disagreements. But you can't have a proper, effective environment without people being on the same page and there being some good relationship between them. Saying anything otherwise is just ridiculous. Any working environment needs that kind of interplay with people, and it needs people to be getting along. It needs people to be on the same page. It needs understanding. There's a lot of intricacies to football, and if people don't understand what they're doing, it can appear as if they're not trying. It can appear as if they're mixed up or they play poorly when they don't understand, and that is the problem that's happening right now, and the risk of bringing in an interim, especially without bringing in coaches. So one would hope this gets resolved quickly. The season's pretty much a wash on that basis, though, that we just don't have the coaching and the resources to fix what's going wrong. Obviously, it hasn't been corrected. It's not getting corrected. So we'll go into next season, and that's not to say there aren't players who should leave, but there's a lot of players who were really, really great last year and the year before, and there's no point throwing them out simply because things are going wrong this season. So just a bit of a giving you a bit of a level take on that. That is something I have knowledge of too. It's not just I'm talking out of my opinions, but it's not just the players. There are others around the club, around the coaching staff, around everywhere that feel that it was a huge loss when all these coaches left and it hasn't been replaced, and things are not up to par on the training pitch. And that is kind of playing over and spilling over into the games, quite obviously. What you practice on the training ground is what shows up in games. And it's just lacking at the moment. So anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Let's see what happens. Hopefully the manager situation gets sorted quickly, so at least there's some idea moving forward. But some players are very much unconvinced by the current, and that's probably why you're seeing people who are looking for Pochettino. They know him. A lot of players know him. They want something familiar, someone they know is a good coach, that some have had experience playing under or around. And it's not wrong for them to want that. Whether it's the right manager for the job or not, I don't know. But it's not wrong for players to want that when right now they may be feeling like they don't know what to do and that there isn't much direction. They may feel great under Ten Hag if he comes in. They don't know him. And so there's nothing wrong with wanting a little bit of familiarity either. Doesn't mean it's the way that they should go. It doesn't mean that's the decision that should be made based on at all. But you really can't blame players for wanting something familiar when they're a bit lost at the moment. So, that's how we feel about that. That's just a little bit of background there. Moving on to some transfer things. I think I touched on this before. Aurelien Tchouameni was contacted by United, is not showing up as available. He appears to be going somewhere else, and his demands are very high. It's one right now, again, I would consider writing off for the time being. There was a report that Kamara had an agreement with United coming out of Italy. Not the case. He's in talks with Atletico. Bruno Fernandes got his new deal officially. This is great. He's going to be here for whatever manager comes next. And the other players that are showing up in line are Rashford, Shaw, and Fred getting new deals, and I think that they will. Those are players, again, marked by people involved as players who should be here longer. And they may not all be the same length. Fred will probably get a shorter deal as he's older, but they want to keep him around so they don't have to, sign someone for every single possible position. And that's it for now in terms of the transfer and contract news. There should be more coming out on the manager front in the next few days, but I wouldn't expect finality that quickly. Keep reporting and watch the Twitter as I'll be looking for updates on anything else. Most of the transfer stuff is going to slow down, at least until the manager situation is sorted, and then pick up again towards the end of April, beginning of May, when league positions are a bit more finalized and the manager situation is more finalized as well. So I'll be posting more videos throughout the week as we get updates, but thanks for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on, and we'll see you in the next video.